Hello everyone. Welcome back to Dewey's Ghost Story channel on YouTube. I hope you have an exciting time listening to today's ghost story. Before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thank you all very much. And now, without further ado, let's dive into today's story about a hotel in GIA. This story happened in the summer of 2019. The witness was a friend of yours, a girl named Yin. To give a little background, you and Yin have been very close, but Yin has always been the type who rarely goes out, preferring to stay home. Despite your close friendship, it was hard to convince Yin to go out and have fun. However, during the summer of 2019, after settling your work, you invited Yin to go on a trip, saying, "We've never traveled together before. Let's go have some fun." Yin agreed and asked where to go. You suggested GIA, and she agreed. You took care of booking the hotel, since Yin was not used to traveling. After everything was arranged, it was time to head to the bus station for the trip to GIA. Yin was punctual, as she always respected time. However, your brother, who was returning from Japan, wanted to join. You had to wait for him, so you told Yin to go ahead to GIA and check into the hotel, and you would join her later. Yin arrived at the hotel and spoke to the receptionist to check in, but was surprised to hear that the room you booked was unavailable due to a system error. The receptionist explained that the room was already occupied. Yin called you to clarify, and you confirmed that you hadn't canceled the booking, since she was already there with her luggage. The receptionist offered her a different room, which was separate from the others and located at the end of the hallway. Yin agreed and moved into the room. After settling in, it was around 3 or 4 p.m. The room was indeed isolated at the end of the corridor, but Yin wasn't afraid of ghosts or superstitious, so she didn't think much of it. She unpacked, lay on the bed, and used her phone until about 8 p.m., then decided to freshen up before bed. After brushing her teeth, she returned to the bed, but couldn't find her phone. She was puzzled since she remembered leaving it on the bed. She searched the room and jokingly thought, "If there's a ghost here hiding my phone, please return it." After a while, she spotted her phone on a desk near the bed. The room was like any other hotel room, with the bed in the center and a work desk nearby. There was also a dressing table with a mirror facing the bed. Yin realized she must have left her phone on the desk before showering, even though she thought she had left it on the bed. After capturing the phone, Yin intended to call her friend, but when she turned it on, the phone indicated that the battery was completely drained. Before taking a shower, Yin had noticed her phone still had about 40 to 50% battery left. Now, it was suddenly dead. Yin didn't think much of it and decided to look for her charger in her bag, but couldn't find it. She realized she must have left it at home. Fortunately, she had brought her laptop for work, which still had some battery left. Yin set the laptop on the bed to work, but soon found it uncomfortable due to the awkward position. She then moved to the desk where she had earlier placed her phone. While working at the desk, Yin felt a chill breeze on the back of her neck, like cold air from a refrigerator. She turned around to find the source, realizing the air conditioner was on. Feeling too cold, she found the remote and turned it off. Feeling sleepy, Yin decided to shut down her laptop and go to bed. Her sleeping position was with her head against the wall and her feet facing the mirror, which was opposite the bed. Yin usually slept with all the lights off, whether at home or elsewhere, as she found it more restful. That night, however, she couldn't sleep well, tossing and turning, waking up frequently. In the middle of the night, she felt very cold, as if the air conditioner was on, but she remembered turning it off. Checking it confirmed it was indeed off. She pulled the blanket over her head to try and sleep, but kept hearing footsteps outside her door, as if someone was pacing back and forth quickly. Yin thought someone might be looking for the wrong room. After a while, the footsteps stopped, but then there was knocking on her door, persistent and annoying. Frustrated, Yin didn't get up to answer, just muttered to herself, wondering who could be knocking at that hour. She didn't think of ghosts, just annoyance at being disturbed. After she mentally complained, the knocking ceased, and she tried to sleep through the rest of the night. The next morning, Yin woke up startled to find her sleeping position had completely changed. Her head was no longer against the wall, and her feet weren't facing the mirror. Instead, she was lying diagonally, with her feet pointing towards the door. Her blanket was on the floor, and her pillow had fallen to the edge of the bed. Normally, Yin's sleeping position was stable and unchanged through the night, so this was unusual. She attributed it to restless sleep rather than anything supernatural, despite having dreams about ghosts all night. After waking up, Yin went to the reception to borrow a phone charger. Once her phone was charged, her friend called, worried because they couldn't reach her all night. Yin explained her phone had died and she didn't have a charger. Her friend, on the way to visit her at the hotel, had a bad feeling and suggested they move to a different hotel. Once her friend arrived, they checked out of the current hotel and moved to a new one. Her friend also took her to a temple, saying it was very spiritual, and suggested they pray there. After visiting the temple, they returned to the new hotel and spent the next few days without incident. Later, her friend visited Yin at her home. You asked Yin about the first day she stayed at the hotel before you arrived. You want to know if she felt anything unusual or had any strange feelings. Yin recounted her experience, explaining how she felt that day and what she noticed the next morning when she woke up. After hearing her story, you shared your dreams with Yin, admitting you hadn't planned to tell her, but felt compelled to do so. You learned that the hotel room was abandoned and not in use. So when the room you booked was full, they placed her in the unused room. The hotel was not well managed, leading to such situations. Before sharing your dreams, you mentioned your belief in the spiritual realm and your occasional vivid dreams that seemed real, almost like telepathy with certain people. You told Yin about dreaming of her in the room with two other people, a man and a woman. You described the room in detail, matching Yin's description perfectly, even though her phone was broken, preventing communication. You saw Yin with a man and a woman, both around 39 to 40 years old. The man had curly hair and wore a white shirt with shorts, while the woman had long hair and wore a long white dress. Although the dream was hazy, you felt these people were always watching Yin from the lobby to her room. When you awoke from this dream, it was late, and you sensed something similar might happen to Yin at the hotel. You tried calling her, but her phone was off. You fell asleep again and dreamt of Yin in the room, sitting and focusing on something, which turned out to be her working on her laptop. The man and woman were hanging from the ceiling like lizards, their heads turned upside down, breathing air towards Yin's neck. The dream was brief, and you shared everything with Yin, explaining why you urged her to change hotels. After arriving at the hotel, while preparing to check out, you saw an air conditioning repairman asking for the room number from the receptionist. The room number matched the one Yin stayed in the previous night. The receptionist mentioned the air conditioner worked but wasn't cooling, which was why the repairman was called. You and Yin were shocked, as she had mentioned feeling cold while working on her laptop the previous night. In another story from 10 years ago, around 2012, you visited your uncle's house in Tan Phu with 5 or 6 siblings from the countryside. Due to the large group, your uncle suggested sleeping upstairs, where there was a Buddha statue for peace of mind. You recall sleeping on a spring mattress with the siblings. While they slept, you played games until 3:25 a.m., when you felt sleepy and turned off your game. As you lay down to sleep, the house was dark, and you felt someone stepping on the corner of the spring mattress. Assuming someone was going to the bathroom, you looked but saw everyone asleep. When you lay back down, you felt footsteps moving slowly on the mattress, which you sensed due to the spring's movement. You pulled the blanket over your head, trying not to see anything, but still felt the steps. After a minute, you sensed someone standing over your head, looking down at you. Though scared, you uncovered your head despite previously hiding. You've run out of ideas, so you open your eyes and find yourself facing a window with curtains fluttering as if a strong wind is blowing in. The moonlight outside is bright, illuminating the room. It feels like the 15th or 16th night of the lunar month when the moon is at its brightest. Suddenly, you feel your body become lighter yet stiff, unable to move anything except your eyes. As you look around, you notice an old woman above you, wearing an orange sweater with short hair. Her face is shadowed and dark, making it difficult to see clearly. Before you can react, the old woman grabs your neck with one hand and your belt with the other. You are wearing jeans with a belt, and she lifts you effortlessly, carrying you to the staircase leading downstairs. The staircase is about 5 meters high. Although you can't speak, you struggle, and she eventually places you at the corner of the stairs instead of dropping you down. After she sets you down, you muster the strength to grab her hand, noticing it's rough and gnarled, like a sun-dried piece of wood. Despite the fear, you hold on until she releases your hand, turns away, and walks off. Once you regain your composure, you return to your mattress but are too scared to sleep. Eventually, you doze off until around 5:30 a.m. when the air conditioner, set on a timer, turns off, making the room warm. Your nephew wakes up to turn it back on, and you urge him to stay awake with you. He doesn't know anything and stays up with you until morning. You call your mother, but hang up quickly, fearing she would worry if you told her. You recall that your mother's hands are as rough as the old woman's, which stops you from telling your uncle, especially since the room is used for Buddhist worship. You keep the story to yourself, thinking it's not significant. 2 or 3 years later, you finally tell your mother, who then informs your uncle. During that time, you occasionally visit your uncle's house, but only for short visits, never staying overnight. Later, when your uncle buys another house in Bintan, you work in Tan Phu and stay at the new house. It's just you and your cousin sleeping there, but you sleep downstairs. One night, while sleeping downstairs because the air conditioner is broken, you hear footsteps coming down the stairs. You think it's your cousin going to the bathroom, but the bathroom door is closed and no one is there. Frightened, you cover yourself with a blanket on the hammock. The feeling of weakness returns, just like when the old woman pulled you to the stairs years ago. When you peek out from the blanket, you see the old woman again, gripping the same spots on you and lifting you from the hammock. Luckily, you manage to hold onto the hammock's frame to prevent falling. She eventually drops you back onto it, and you sit up, terrified, turning on all the lights and smoking until 5 a.m. when the church bell rings, prompting you to leave the house. In another story, a woman recounts a ghostly encounter in a rented house in Pleiku, GIA, around May 2020. She and her husband, along with their 2 children, aged 4 and 3, rented a room with a living room, bedroom, and kitchen. She sells clothes online, storing her merchandise in the loft. During her live streams, she closes the door to avoid disturbing the neighbors, but strangely, the door often opens by itself despite being locked. This happens repeatedly, as if the wind is pushing it open. Since 6th grade, she has been sensitive to spiritual presence, and both her children and husband share this sensitivity. Many nights, while live streaming, the daughter looks outside. The child asked his mother, "Who's outside the door, Mom?" Kids don't know much. They just say what they see. But there was no one outside. It was pitch dark. Sometimes, the little boy would be in the bathroom and ask, "Mom, who is this lady?" Hearing this gave you goosebumps because children can't lie. It felt like someone was standing next to him. You have a Buddhist background, so you believe in spirits and think that if you haven't harmed anyone, they might just be teasing you. However, you kept experiencing sleep paralysis, and your 2 kids were constantly disturbed, crying and refusing to sleep. Every night they would say, "Mom, the man hit me hard," or "the lady hit me," and you couldn't stand it anymore, so you sought a spiritual teacher. The teacher allowed a spirit to enter your body because he said you had a spiritual connection. When he was about to call the spirit to ask questions, you felt your body heat up and become uncontrollable. The teacher mentioned you had a spiritual gift from a young age, but it hadn't been developed. Although undeveloped, you could still sense spirits and sometimes dream about events that would later happen exactly as in your dreams. When the spirit was about to enter your body, the teacher decided it would be easier for them to enter him instead, as your spiritual connection was strong. After talking to the spirit, it turned out that the male spirit liked you and was causing disturbances to take you away. You realized this was true because after moving into this house, you and your husband argued constantly. He used to be gentle and patient, but after these occurrences, he became aggressive, breaking things easily. Your children, who were well-behaved before, became unruly and cried every night. The teacher communicated with the spirit and gave you a solution. He even visited your place, but things didn't improve much. Your husband's condition worsened after the teacher left. You saw the spirit manifest clearly. While your husband worked all day and returned at night, you were at home cooking and caring for the kids. You saw the male spirit both day and night, describing him as having a thin neck like a reed and a large, elongated head. Even while cooking, you sensed him behind you, and in the bathroom, you felt him lurking outside. Your children often talked to the invisible presence, thinking it was their father. One night, while sleeping, your husband saw the spirit crawling on the ceiling, which was the underside of the loft above your bed. The space between the bed and the loft was very low. The spirit got close to your husband's face and tried to strangle him. Remembering a prayer the teacher taught him, your husband recited it, and the spirit disappeared. The spirit appeared just as you described, with a thin neck and large head. That night, neither of you dared to sleep. Terrified, you kept the lights on while sleeping, but the disturbances continued. The next morning, you asked the teacher to visit again. He looked at the loft and said there was a pregnant woman's spirit there, looking down angrily. You rarely went up there, but whenever you did, you felt a chilling presence. Once, while the teacher was talking, you glanced up and saw a white shadow flash by. Your husband admitted he had seen it before, but didn't tell you to avoid stressing you. The teacher explained that the male and pregnant female spirits were a couple who died together. They were in their 40s or 50s, not young, and for some reason, they hadn't moved on and had become malevolent spirits. The male spirit liked you and followed you, trying to protect you, not harm you. But the female spirit, being his wife, was jealous and caused trouble. This situation caused your family to become unsettled. However, the teacher said that even though he cared, the couple had become very malevolent spirits. Trying to exorcise or banish them wouldn't work and would create bad karma. The only solution is for you and your spouse to move out as soon as possible. Leave quietly without telling anyone, or the spirits might follow you to your new place. The teacher advised to act as if you were just going on a short trip to visit your mother, to avoid suspicion. When you moved, the mental pressure was intense because even a slight slip in your thoughts could alert them, and they would follow immediately. Unfortunately, even after moving to a new place, you weren't at peace. You continued to encounter issues with lingering spirits, which you found terrifying. This story is the most haunting for you because you had to move out less than a month after moving in due to constant disturbances. The spirit of the man was particularly attached to you, wanted to take you as his wife. However, your entire family has the ability to sense spirits, which helped you overcome this ordeal. If you had stayed in that house, your life might have been in danger. This concludes a chapter about the mysteries in rented houses and hotels. Before ending the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Dewey's YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to leave a comment below. Let's look forward to more exciting stories in the future. Goodbye, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel Ghost Stories with Uncle Ba Dewey. I hope you all have an exciting time listening to ghost stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel to support Dewey. Thank you all very much. Let's begin today's story. Today's story is from a young woman. She mentioned that she has listened to many ghost story channels, but this is the first time she's sharing a story she personally witnessed. The event took place around 2014 to 2015. During that time, a shocking incident happened in her neighborhood, and since then, no one dared to go out at night for a long time. In her neighborhood, a couple had moved from the north to live there. They had been living in the area for about a year. The husband was named Sang, and the wife was Enhong. They had a young child named Min, around 4 or 5 years old. After settling in and building their house, Sang invited a spiritual master to perform a blessing ceremony to check the feng shui of their home. However, Sang didn't really believe in such spiritual matters. He just did it as a formality. The master, after inspecting the house, said that the house was facing the wrong direction and warned that if they didn't rebuild it, something unfortunate might happen within a year. But Sang didn't take the warning seriously, and just nodded it off. After the ceremony, life went on as usual for the family. A year passed, and everything seemed normal. Their son Min was now over 5 years old. In-hung worked as a kindergarten teacher, and Sang was in the military, working nearby. Their house was directly across from the storytellers, making them neighbors. Despite being new to the area, Sang and In-hung were friendly and well-liked. In-hung often brought Min over to play at the storyteller's house. The couple seemed happy and never argued loudly, unlike some other couples. However, a shocking event changed everything. On March 8th, International Women's Day, In-hung was teaching at school when she received a call asking her to deliver a bouquet to her colleague, Ms. Hung. Hung lived nearby, and since she wasn't at school that day, In-hung agreed to help. After work, In-hung went to Hung's house, but Hung wasn't home. Instead, her husband, Tuan, was there. As neighbors, In-hung chatted with Tuan for a bit while handing him the flowers. Unbeknownst to them, Sang happened to pass by and saw In-hung talking to Tuan with the bouquet in hand. Overcome with jealousy, Sang assumed they were having an affair, thinking Tuan had given his wife flowers on this special day. Although enraged, Sang decided to wait until that night to confront them. That evening, everything seemed normal at home. But around 9 p.m., the storyteller's grandmother noticed Sang leaving on his bike. Later, as she was about to sleep, she saw him return with a black rope, the kind used for tying cattle. She wondered what he was up to. What a strange thing. That guy went out last night and didn't say what he was buying. Now he's buying a rope, which seems odd. But the grandmother didn't pay much attention and just closed the door to sleep. That night, everyone went to bed, and nothing happened until the next morning when suddenly there was someone banging loudly on the door. No one knew who it was, so they ran outside and saw that the person knocking was Ms. An, the principal of the kindergarten where Ms. In-hung was teaching. Ms. An looked very distressed and anxious. People asked, "Why are you knocking on my door?" Ms. An replied that she had called MS. In-hung that morning to ask why she wasn't coming to teach and hadn't informed anyone. However, it wasn't Ms. In-hung who answered, but her son, Min. The boy innocently said, "Hello. My mom is playing a game, swinging on a rope hanging from the door." Hearing this, Ms. An turned pale, realizing something was wrong. She came over to your house, which is opposite Ms. In-hung's, to seek help. Everyone was so shocked and didn't know what was happening. Your uncle grabbed a crowbar, and your father took a shovel, and they went over, leaving the door open. They knocked and called, but no one answered until they broke down the door. The scene that unfolded was that Mr. Sang and Ms. In-hung had hanged themselves on the door. They were already dead. When they went further inside, they found the couple hanging in front of the bedroom door. Witnessing that scene, Ms. An fainted on the spot, unable to bear it. On the floor, there was a lot of blood, especially on Ms. In-hung's face, which was bruised as if she had been beaten. However, Mr. Sang's body showed no signs of injury, which was very strange. When you heard the story, the neighbors had gathered to watch, and the police arrived to investigate the scene. Everyone felt heartbroken for the couple. You weren't home until your mother took you to school and back. When you went to see the scene, the bodies were covered with white cloth, and only the black ropes were left hanging on the door. After the police investigation, it was concluded that Mr. Sang had killed his wife, Ms. In-hung, and then hanged himself due to unfounded jealousy. As a result, their son Min lost both parents. After the police finished their work, the relatives from the north came to take the bodies back for burial. They also took Min to the north for schooling and care. The house was locked and left abandoned. Although the main door was shut, the windows around the house were left open. Since the couple's death, they often appeared to talk to Ms. Hai, In-hung's foster mother, whose house was behind In-hung's. Every night, Ms. Hai would hear the couple asking her to make offerings because they were hungry and cold. Whenever she made offerings, they would stop appearing. One day, while cutting grass for her cows near In-hung's house, Ms. Hai heard knocking sounds coming from inside the house. She moved to another spot but kept hearing the knocking. She thought to herself that the couple was playing tricks on her and told them to stop so she could finish cutting the grass. After she spoke, the knocking stopped, as if the couple was just teasing her. The incident left people feeling uneasy and they avoided passing by the area at night. Over time, people became less afraid. Although you only witnessed part of the story and heard it from your grandmother, you hope everyone learns the lesson that jealousy should never lead to such tragic actions. When you started working at that clothing shop, you noticed that the staff there were divided into cliques, with the older employees bullying the newcomers. As a result, you didn't interact much with anyone. Everything began to change after 2 weeks of working there. One evening, after your shift, you rode your bike back to your apartment complex only to discover that you had returned too late and the complex was locked for the night. Unfortunately, you had left your key in your room, so you couldn't get in. You decided to ride back to the clothing shop to sleep there for the night. On your way back, you passed a dimly lit cafe. It was a cafe in name, but it was quite dark. The cafe was about 2 to 3 kilometers from your shop. As you passed by, you noticed a tall young man, around 1.7 to 1.8 meters tall, standing outside the cafe. You didn't pay much attention to his face, but you remembered that he looked at you intently and smiled. It was strange how he kept staring at you as you passed by. You continued on your way back to the shop, entered the storage room, and tried to sleep. However, you couldn't stop thinking about that young man. Normally, you would fall asleep immediately after work, but that night you tossed and turned, unable to shake the image of him from your mind. It wasn't until 3 or 4 in the morning that you finally fell asleep. A few days later, after working late, you asked the shop owner if you could sleep there again. That night, before going to sleep, you felt extremely hungry because you had eaten very little that morning. Despite being very tired, you went to the small kitchen in the back to cook some noodles with sausages. While you were cutting the sausages, you were so sleepy that you almost dozed off, even though it was dangerous to handle a knife in that state. Suddenly, you heard a loud male voice in your ear, warning you not to fall asleep or you'd cut yourself. Startled, you immediately woke up, no longer sleepy. You looked around but found no one else there. Frightened, you quickly finished cooking and eating before going to sleep in the storage room. Around 2 a.m., you woke up with a start and noticed a dark figure standing near the storage cabinet. It was a tall young man, but you couldn't see his face. You didn't move and heard him say softly, "Rest." You've worked hard. You felt strangely calm and fell back asleep until morning. The next day, being a weekend, you stayed home to rest. In your dreams, you kept seeing a scene with many boats on a river, similar to the floating market at Sai Rang in Kando. You saw this scene repeatedly over 2 days and ended up feeling unwell, taking a couple of days off to recover. While resting at home, you continued to dream of the same scene, but now the young man was there, guiding you onto a boat docked at a riverbank. He asked if your job was tiring and why you didn't change jobs. You woke up with sweaty palms, but dismissed it as just a dream, as you didn't believe in ghosts. The following day, you rode back to work, passing the dimly lit cafe again. The young man was there, waving and smiling at you. You smiled back, thinking he was just teasing you. Interestingly, while you could see his face clearly in real life, in your dreams, his face was always unclear. You weren't sure if the young man from the cafe and the one in your dreams were the same person. Back at the shop, while hanging clothes, you accidentally scratched your forehead with a hanger, causing some pain. After your shift, you went home to eat, bathe, and sleep. That night, you fell asleep. I kept encountering this young man who appeared in my dreams, sitting next to me with a very worried expression. His face was serious as he asked why I was being so careless and not careful at all, pointing out the scratches on my face. He expressed how concerned he was for me. At that moment, I wasn't scared at all. I felt quite normal and even asked him back, wondering who he was and why he kept appearing in my dreams. However, he didn't reply, and then he vanished. Despite repeatedly seeing him in my dreams over 4 to 5 months, I let it continue. As time went on, I often dreamt of this young man taking me to various places, but I didn't seek any spiritual guidance because I didn't believe much in such things. One day, as I was getting ready to go out, I was on the 3rd floor, wearing high heels and being very careful. But somehow, as if under a spell, I slipped and fell. Luckily, I didn't tumble down to the ground floor. I just had a minor fall and only scraped my leg a bit without much pain. That night, When I went to sleep, I dreamed of him again. He scolded me, asking why I wasn't careful, warning me about the many female ghosts who had hung themselves on those stairs. Although I didn't believe in spiritual matters, hearing this made me uneasy because I couldn't understand how he knew I had just fallen. In my dream, I asked him how he knew, and he replied that if it hadn't been for him, I would have been pushed by them and broken my neck. This continued for several months. Every night, I would meet him in my dreams, whether sad or happy. And gradually, I began to feel affection for him. Because of such a significant event, I kept longing to sleep, hoping to dream of him taking me to play. By September 2021, I visited my hometown, and a relative noticed my strange expression and told my mother and family to take me to a spiritual guide because they suspected a spirit was following me. Despite my family's insistence, I refused to go, reacting strongly. When I recounted this, I felt teary because I missed him so much. My family eventually forced me to go, leading me to a spiritual guide on a mountain in Anjong province. I don't remember the route well, but when we arrived at the guide's house, he immediately knew everything without needing to be told. He said the spirit of that young man was sitting beside me, crying. Hearing this shocked me, and I didn't understand what was happening. The guide recognized my long-standing spiritual connection and quickly set up a ritual to allow the spirit to enter me so he could communicate. After the ritual, the guide informed me that the spirit was about to enter me. I lost consciousness and only heard the story from my mother afterward. When I woke up, my mother explained that the spirit loved me very much. Initially, he intended to tease me, but he found me charming and hardworking, so he fell in love and followed me. The guide asked the spirit for his name and background, and he revealed he was named Phuc from Kinno. He had come to Saigon for work, but was robbed and killed near a cafe. Unable to move on, he wandered around until he saw me passing by on a motorbike, and his affection grew over time. After hearing his story, the guide and my mother felt sad. The guide asked the spirit if he knew that following me would affect my health, to which he admitted but said he wanted to protect me. My mother saw me crying, not because I was sad, but because of the spirit's good intentions. The guide advised the spirit to move on, suggesting that if he chose to reincarnate, they might meet again in another life. The guide promised to make me a protective bracelet to prevent spirits from coming near me. Before leaving, the spirit requested the guide to tell me he loved me and hoped to meet again in another life. After he left, I cried a lot, telling my mother how much I missed and loved him. I don't know what to do anymore. However, when looking at the future ahead, I must sever this spiritual connection. I can't let this relationship continue. That's why every day, you're sad and crying until nearly the top 5 days. Then you can finally start to move on. On the day you began to feel better, it was also Tet. On the second day of Tet, your family welcomed 2 very special guests. 2 unfamiliar people entered your house unexpectedly, but your family treated them as usual because it's Tet. The 2 guests asked if you were named so-and-so and then began to explain their story. They had a son named Phuc from Kinno, born in 1997, who went to Saigon for work and unfortunately passed away. They described the circumstances exactly as the teacher had told you before. Upon hearing this, you were overwhelmed with emotion, tears welling up, and your heart felt heavy. After talking for about 2 hours, the mother comforted you, saying not to be sad anymore, as her son was gone. If you two have a connection, maybe you'll meet in the next life. Before leaving, for some unknown reason, they adopted you as their goddaughter, and you frequently visited them. The ending of this story is similar to another spiritual connection story told long ago. However, the circumstances of the 2 meetings are very different. Stories like these reaffirm that tales of spiritual connections often have sad endings. Everyone thought it was over, but it wasn't. After a long time, when you changed jobs and moved to Bin Duong, you encountered strange phenomena again. In Bin Duong, you rented a room in Thuan and for 1.3 million, with a loft where you slept and parked your bike downstairs. Initially, nothing happened until early March this year. One night, while sleeping on the loft, you had a strange dream. You saw a man entering your room, walking from the door to the middle of the room, looking up at the loft where you were lying. You were awake and scared it was a thief, but the door wasn't locked. You noticed many large footprints on the floor, seemingly belonging to a man, size 39 or 40. You went down to check, but were too sleepy to think much, assuming they were your footprints. You cleaned them up and went back to sleep. Days later, at noon, you hosted a small party in your room, inviting friends over to drink. By 10:30 a.m., you were very drunk, and your friends continued drinking downstairs. You climbed up to the loft to sleep while they stayed below. Suddenly, your body felt rigid, and you couldn't open your eyes. You sensed someone climbing the stairs to your loft. The movement was audible, but you couldn't open your eyes. You felt someone behind you, hugging you, their arm around your waist, touching your cheek. You wondered if it was Mai, but she never liked hugging anyone while sleeping. You felt the person's cold hand and a chill behind you, like a block of ice. You silently recited prayers until your body relaxed, and you opened your eyes, finding yourself alone on the loft. Your friends were still drinking downstairs, and it was around noon. You angrily confronted them, asking if anyone had come up to hug you. They laughed, saying they were drunk and sleeping downstairs. Mai hadn't come up to hug you. You felt bewildered, but dismissed it as drunken hallucinations. Later, you returned to your routine. Around 7 p.m., you came home from work, prepared fish, and left it on the stove. You went up to lie down, hearing noises from dishes below, as if someone was serving food. Plastic bags rustled noisily. You looked down and saw a man standing in your room. His face normal, but with a creepy smile. You were frozen with fear, staring at him for several seconds until you heard a sound like a box dropping. You were startled when you fell to the ground and realized it was just a dream, not reality. Although frightened, you forced yourself to go downstairs to check the kitchen. When you reached the kitchen, you saw the fish container you had prepared had fallen, scattering the fish everywhere. You were already scared because you heard that noise in your dream, and now it was real. Quickly, you ran out to buy incense, returned to your room, and lit it to pray because you knew there was a presence in the room. You prayed for the spirits to protect you and not to frighten you, as you were very scared. After praying, you tried to sleep through the night. The next morning, you bought fruit to offer again, thinking it was over. But the following night, you were pinned down by a dark shadow in your sleep. Exhausted from work and this experience, you exclaimed, asking why it kept happening. After speaking out, you felt relieved and could sleep again. The next day, you continued to buy fruit for offerings and asked the landlord if anything unusual had happened in the building. The landlord assured you that no one else had experienced anything strange and suggested you might be imagining things due to exhaustion. Hearing this, you stayed silent, choosing not to discuss it further, and continued living there. Recently, you had another dream where you lay on a hammock beside a young man whose face you could see clearly. In the dream, he wrapped one arm around your neck and touched your chest with the other, similar to a previous experience where you felt a cold hand on your chest. When you grabbed his hand, he pushed you away, startling you awake with a very real sensation of pain in your chest, as if someone had touched you. Having recently experienced a spiritual connection with a young man at a dimly lit cafe, you were unsure if this new incident was similar and felt troubled about how to handle it. As our story concludes, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to leave a comment below. Stay tuned for more spiritual stories. Goodbye, everyone.